Dr. Rosensweet.
Good morning. Good morning. Carolyn Shapiro.
I'm going to change my name to Morling.
Morning.
Yeah. I like that name. How are you doing?
Really good.
Excellent. I just watched an interview you did. I'm very impressed with Mr. Nelson Virgil, who's like incredible.
Yeah,
Very nice.
There's a very special person there.
Yes, I'm aware, and what a nice interview. Thank you for doing that. I think I can post it even with your permission.
Oh yeah.
Cool. All right. So you know what? We have some really good questions here, I think. And so, this hour goes by so fast that I'm just going to hop right onto this. And I got my bijou right here. See him? Hello. Good morning, everybody. Okay. First question comes in. Dr. Rosensweet, I am postmenopausal. BHRT has caused my blood pressure to rise. It spikes to 170 at times. Now, I don't know if this is diastolic or systolic. I'm hoping it's systolic. I'm not sure if, my BP was normal prior to my starting BHRT about a year ago, and I am concerned. Why would this happen? I had zero menopause problems up until I started BHRT.
Well, this is an important question.
Yeah.
I'm only going to be able to speak in generalities as there's so much information that is missing. It's not that it's missing. In order to really answer this adequately, I would need additional information. But let's start general.
Okay.
It's not uncommon for a woman who's never had blood pressure issues to go into menopause and get blood pressure issues.
Okay, so you can go into menopause and get issues. Okay.
It's fairly common, and I'll explain why in a minute. But I'm not talking about a woman who's being treated yet.
Right.
This woman's question really relates somewhat possibly to the treatment. But I want to just address basically that there's many women who've had normal blood pressure their whole life. They go into menopause, they get elevated blood pressure. And here's how that works. When a woman's estrogen drops and her ovaries are no longer producing an adequate amount, this is even before she stops menstruating. Remember, her estrogen levels peaked when she was 20 years old. They're at the highest, and backwards again, trying to figure this out. Peaked when they were 20 and then gradually declined. And then they get so low at one point that they don't have enough to form an endometrial lining, so they stop menstruating.
Yeah.
But there's been a major decline. At that point, man, there's a real drop-off. Those ovaries stop producing estrogen.
Yeah, and you feel it.
That's very stressful to a woman.
Yes.
And a woman's body never stops wanting that estrogen, never. So, for example, when that estrogen drops really low, the pituitary gland in the brain and the hypothalamus starts signaling the ovary to stay alive, stay alive. And it puts out a powerful stimulating hormone called FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. And it puts out very elevated levels to trying to keep that ovary alive, but it's not successful. Initially in the perimenopause, it can be successful in bursts. You can get a burst of follicle stimulating hormone. The ovary will pump out extra amount of estrogen. In fact, in the perimenopause, with that FSH burst, a woman can even produce higher levels of estrogen than she did when she was younger and regularly menstruating.
That's crazy.
It's a burst. So, and a woman in perimenopause goes through these spikes. Oh boy, I still haven't got this backwards thing down at all. Dang, no, dang. Bursts where she was fairly steady when she was younger. She can get these bursts of these FSH bursts. But the FSH bursts don't work. They might work temporarily to get a blast of estrogen higher than what she's used to, but it does not work in the long run, and the ovaries eventually stop working. And the interesting thing is, the FSH goes high and never comes down. You test a 90-year-old woman, and her follicle stimulating hormone, her pituitary gland, is still trying to wake up those ovaries with these robust amounts of FSH levels that she never even saw when she was younger.
That is the weirdest thing. Sorry, but it is to me.
Well, it tells us that the body, the brain, the hypothalamus doesn't think low hormones is acceptable. Why doesn't it just give up?
No,
and
that's
say, she's in menopause. These ovaries aren't going to work.
no,
Let's just let it go.
Right.
Well, that doesn't happen.
Right.
And it tells us how much a woman's body still wants her estrogen. Well, it's very stressful to a woman's body to not have estrogen.
Right.
One signal of that stress is there's 75% of women who feel that stress. 25% of that women still have that stress, but they don't feel it. But 75% of women will, for example, will have something like a hot flash, and a hot flash in the middle of the night. And that's so stressful, it triggers the biology of the stress response and outpour the hormones for fight or flight. And the vanguard of those hormones is adrenaline.
Yeah.
And adrenaline is one of the world's greatest biochemicals to raise blood pressure.
Okay. I'll buy that. I don't think it's the world's greatest hormone. I hate it.
It's necessary in the
Yes.
proper amounts. Absolutely. We love it. We love adrenaline. It has many natural functions, but and if it happens in the middle of the night, for example, or even during the middle of the day, those hot flashes are stressful and adrenaline comes out. And when someone, for example, goes into an emergency room and they have low blood pressure, they're going into shock, and it's not from hemorrhage, that emergency room doctor is going to inject some form of adrenaline because it's the world's greatest blood pressure elevator when you need it. Well, a woman in menopause doesn't need her blood pressure to go up. And it's very interesting that a certain percentage of women, if they're having a hot flash in the middle of the night, they have adrenaline. They have triggered the stress response. And one way we know it is their mind will start racing. And it won't stop racing. They'll stay awake, thinking. It's the adrenaline. And they'll keep thinking. They'll still be awake until their liver has the ability to dismantle the adrenaline that got triggered. And a 20-year-old, when you put out adrenaline for fight or flight, it doesn't take a 20-year-old liver long to dismantle that adrenaline.
Right.
But a 50-year-old liver, it's been around the block. It takes time. And so a woman could stay awake with a hot flash for an hour just because her adrenaline is still circulating and hasn't been taken out of circulation by the liver.
Okay.
That adrenaline will raise the blood pressure in many women in the middle of the night. If they had a blood pressure cuff and they took their blood pressure when they're getting one of those hot flashes and they have racing mind, they're going to see elevated blood pressure. Now I want to turn to the question.
Oh, okay.
Number one, a systolic of 170, boy, you want to get thee to a doctor and have that one evaluated. And because there's other reasons in midlife that the blood pressure can elevate. And, I would be perfectly satisfied with a 170 systolic. That's what it is. It's 170 systolic.
I would imagine, yeah.
That's the upper number. It is. There's no doubt about it. She wouldn't be writing you a question if it was
she had a diastolic.
in the hospital if it was a diastolic.
It's true. Not
Sorry,
fun.
sorry to chuckle there.
Yeah.
But a 170 systolic, I'm not concerned about the immediate danger, especially if the diastolic is reasonable, but it's something you want to address. And sometimes some interim treatment with blood pressure lowering medicines, if it takes that, or anti-stress medications, the strong type, if it takes that, you don't want to keep a blood pressure up at 170. Meanwhile, you want to work on the long-term solution. Now, when you say you didn't have it, when the questioner says she didn't have it prior to treatment with BHRT,
right?
In order to get elevated blood pressure with BHRT, compounded bioidentical hormones, there has to be some kind of misprescription. So anyone who's not doing 24-hour urine hormone testing is not really going to have enough clues if there's too much or too little. You can get clues from blood testing, but you've got to really know what you're doing there. And the 24-hour urine hormone test will reveal this. Too much estrogen? Oh, that's been that's been known to raise blood pressure.
Yeah.
Or too little estrogen. If she doesn't have enough estrogen, she still could be having that include adrenaline in many cases. So number one,
I'm losing you.
Be tested, and I highly recommend what your hormone levels are.
If you can hear me, Dr. Rosensweet, I'm losing you. I'm losing you.
Guys, and they'll come and go.
I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Sorry, ladies, if you're watching. I think we're having some technical issues here. In fact, I know we are, if you can hear me. Ooh. Are you back?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Now I can. We've switched places, and
Sure. So to continue, hang on a second. To continue, there's two elements of this. One is to get accurate hormone testing. The levels may be too high or maybe too low. There's other indicators. Someone who's really skilled and experienced, like one of our menopause method prescribers, can assist you with that. But with a systolic of 170, the first thing I do, and maybe this person already has a blood pressure cuff, but you want to do 6 tests throughout a day. You want to do 1 when you wake up in the morning. You want to do 2 or 3 when you feel stressed. You want to do 1 or 2 when you feel not stressed. You want to do 1 when you go to bed at night, and you want to do another one you wake up in the middle of the night, and you want to record those and bring those to a physician, because it may just be brief. It still needs to be addressed.
Yes.
But when you bring that kind of information of you've recorded, and you've recorded, and you're bringing a series of records to a healthcare provider, they really need that information to be able to assist you. And if they're going to suggest an interim blood pressure lowering medicine, do it. I recommend a beta blocker, or labetalol. It's an old-fashioned medicine, but a lot of the menopausal type blood pressure elevations are really because of the adrenaline. So you block the adrenaline some. Now, that may not be the optimal long-term approach. If that blood pressure is coming from other reasons, there are other medications that someone really good with blood pressure will know how to administer, because there's always causes of elevated blood pressure. But in the short range, you don't want it swimming around 170. I'm not here to scare you, but you don't want it that high. And I'm going to recommend that you get interim treatment, and that your physicians know how to do this. They're usually very skilled at blood pressure medications. That doesn't mean you're going to be on it forever. I mean, my suggestion would be get that blood pressure under control, and then see what the menopause issue is.
So it's just piece by piece, step by step.
Yeah, everything's like that in life. Is step by step, one step after another. But do the right thing first. Get a blood pressure cuff. Do all those readings that I told you. Write them all down in a very clear fashion. Bring them to a licensed professional, and have them look at that and decide whether you want blood pressure medicine, at least to begin with. And then simultaneously address the dosage, because incorrect dosages and incorrect balances can be stressful enough to trigger the adrenaline, which would trigger increased blood pressure. And I have seen instances where excessive hormones can trigger elevated blood pressure as well. So there you go. Simple question.
And a simple answer? Not. Thank you for that. I've seen people turn beet red, men, women, whatever, in the store just from getting angry. That's an adrenaline thing. I never suggest they go see a good cardiologist in that moment. But if that continues, it's got to be, well, it is. I know it. I've gone through it. Thank you for that answer. Very much appreciated. Going on to question 2, and I see these questions. Good morning, Facebook user, whoever you are, my mystery user. Good morning. Can you explain, please, why so many women suffer miserable joint pain and morning stiffness upon entering into menopause?
I don't know the exact explanation, but I'll tell you, it is common.
Ooh, don't I know?
Aches and pains in joints and muscles, they're so common. And sometimes they're severe.
Mm-hmm.
I remember sitting in my office, I can picture it perfectly. I'm interviewing a new patient. She's a high-end real estate agent in Naples, Florida. She's in her mid-50s. She's very intelligent, very pleasant. And during my review of her initial questionnaire, I realized she's on OxyContin.
Right.
Which is a narcotic of the strongest order. And she's taking it daily. And I'm sitting there in my chair. I could picture this going, oh my God, do I really want to take on an OxyContin addict? Because, no judgment there. You just get addicted to OxyContin. And she'd been on it for 8 months. That was enough to embed that. But I liked her and I trusted her. And I went, okay, I'm going to go into this. And we started her out, and because I asked her, why are you taking that? And she says, because I have severe joint pain and aches. And eventually it was the only thing that would quiet it down. And I've got to work and I've got a very important job. And so I'm grateful that I can at least go to work in the morning, because the pain was significant enough that I couldn't. And so I told her that I wouldn't be the one who would be writing the prescription for the OxyContin, and proceeded to treat her for menopause. And I'm going into our local health food store 5 weeks later, and she runs up to me in the parking lot and said, you won't believe this. I am totally off my OxyContin. She dropped it cold. That's very unusual.
So much for the addiction.
Yeah, that's very unusual for someone to drop OxyContin cold, and the pain is all gone. So that was very rewarding. And I can't tell you how many women have come for that first consultation. They got a small, medium, or large amount of joint pain, muscle pain, aches, back pain. That
you can get up and feel like a mummy, like you can't move.
And this is what I tell physicians and nurse practitioners that we train. When people come in a menopausal age demographic and they've got a bunch of new symptoms, don't do a major medical workup. See how many of those symptoms are alleviated by proper hormone treatment. And so I don't linger on this. Now, having said all of this, there are other causes of joint pain. And if simple menopausal treatment that's excellent, that really gets you into the optimal zones, does not relieve that joint pain, there's other functional medicine investigations, which was what I would recommend to do, that relate to the gut. It relates to leaky gut. It relates to diet. There's all kinds of things that can relate to joint pain, especially in midlife when there's been some wear and tear on the various organs. So I'm not saying for a moment that all joint pain is going to be cured by menopause. No way, by treating menopause. I am saying treat the menopause first.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah. See if anything remains. If something remains, go on a journey of investigation, because so much of joint pain, even though it's mysterious to many people and even many healthcare providers, there's causes. There's always causes. And the place where a functional medicine practitioner would start is with leaky gut, with diet, with gluten, with eggplant family. There's all kinds of things to do.
Being in school now and studying all of this, I understand this quite a bit better than I ever did. And I have a great respect for the holistic world and the functional medicine world. And I'll never forget you're saying, treat the menopause first and then treat what's left over. Now, of course, we want to certainly see good physicians, and you end up at a rheumatoid arthritis guy, and he might say there's nothing wrong with you rheumatoid arthritis wise. It could be hormone caused, which is to me pretty interesting. Thank you for that answer. Quick question, I think. funny thing to say, but what is your feeling, Dr. R, about using an estrogen pill vaginally, not orally? Hi, Rod. Good morning, and Paula. What is your feeling about using an estrogen pill vaginally? I know you don't like oral.
Well, the pill, it depends. There are estradiol pills designed for vaginal insertion, and it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
It's not what I would call sufficient treatment or anywhere near it for menopause. No way. But as an interim way to assist the vagina, it's better than nothing. It's worth doing. There are oral estrogens or estrogens that you take by mouth, and I don't think this questioner is referring to something that is designed for mouth, because there's plenty of estrogen pills designed for vaginal insertion. But I would not mess with an estrogen pill designed for the mouth to put it in the vagina. And, we're talking about treatment of a woman in menopause properly has a lot of wonderful moving parts to get it right. And yes, restoration of estradiol is part of that, but to get menopause right, you want to do a much bigger and more inclusive approach to this. And of course, Carolyn, you've offered a free copy of our book, Happy Healthy Hormones, which you can download from Carolyn's website here.
You can, and I'm going to show it to everybody. This is it. And
in it, I've taken great care to describe what I would say all the moving parts to treating a woman properly in menopause. And so you want all that to happen. But, estradiol, pill, vaginal insert, tablet, for an interim solution, do it.
Right, and you can.
Vagina and vaginal atrophy is a very, very important thing to do. But
I'm going to ask you that in a second. Yes.
It's not going to be sufficient.
Yeah.
To what I would consider decent menopause treatment. It wouldn't even rise to decent. There's so many moving parts.
Yes. So, but it's, in your opinion, it's okay in the interim, especially if you're doing the doctor shopping, which I just had somebody come up, Rod, saying, not a single doctor has suggested any of my issues are hormone related. They all ride the same merry-go-round. And it not to discount your question, but I really get that. I do.
Yeah, it's not all. It's unfortunate that the whole field of menopause was so poisoned by an inaccurate, false scientific study that came out in 2002. It scared women and it scared physicians and nurse practitioners. So so many of them are cruising off that knowledge, even though that whole study has been retracted.
I know.
By the very same committee that put out the study in 2002, they retracted it in 2017, publishing that retraction in the same journal they published the original. And I want to quote from that article.
Okay.
After 18 years of follow-up, women treated with hormones are at less risk for breast cancer, heart attack, or stroke. Well, actually, the actual quote goes like this. After 18 years of follow-up, there is no increased risk for breast cancer, heart attack, or stroke for women treated with hormones. And here we're talking about Prempro, no less. So there's no field in medicine that has been more poisoned, and poisoned by false information, no less.
Proven
treating women in menopause with hormones. It's one of the classic and crazy misogynistic events of the planet Earth. And even there was, so we're reversing it, woman by woman, we're figuring it out. We've got major players out there putting in a lot of time, energy, and money to reverse this poison. It's incorrect. And
right.
Traditional doctors are working hard to reverse this false information so women will stop being afraid of hormones, and that prescribers, physicians and nurse practitioners will realize, oh my God, that was untrue, and it's safer and healthier to treat women with hormones.
I'll put that out there and women are shocked. They're like, that can't be so. I'm like, well, I've learned it is so. And when you, Dr. Rosensweet, say it with conviction and fervor, as you do, and you do, that a woman who is treated with hormones stands a much less risk of heart disease, stroke, cognitive decline, cancer, recurrence of cancer, so on and so forth.
Breast cancer, yeah.
Breast cancer.
Less risk of breast cancer, heart attack, and
right, right. And boy, I can go on.
We're all at risk for cancer. I'm at risk for cancer. As a man, I have increased risk for prostate cancer over other cancers, and there's reasons for that. As a woman is at risk for breast cancer, and there's reasons why she's at risk. It isn't just this mysterious thing. But given that, a woman treated with hormones is at less risk for breast cancer, heart attack, and stroke than a woman who goes untreated.
That is the operative, sentence period that should be bolded, fonted in, 84, whatever.
Let's font that thing.
I'm sorry?
Let's font that thing.
You'll see it in about a half an hour.
We'll font it.
We will. We should. Okie dokie. Moving on, because again, this hour goes by in a megasecond. Oh God, I gotta save that one for a second. Let me ask you this one, because I'm going to end up with the other one. Okay, I used to have very full breasts and dense. Kind of a difference there. Do hormones help you keep them full? Or does one lose this fullness forever, whether on hormones or not?
Varies woman for woman. For one thing, fullness of breast is very dependent on several factors, the most major one of which is estrogen. Estrogen stimulates breast glandular tissue, and young, healthy women who are menstruating regularly, many of them will report and remember that as the cycle progressed, the breasts got fuller, sometimes even tender for special reasons. And then if they did not get pregnant, they started receding. The fullness started receding. There was actual increased fluid in the breast as part of that, and there was actual additional breast glandular cells produced each cycle in preparation for the possible pregnancy and breastfeeding. Right there, each cycle, preparation for breastfeeding. The changes needed for a woman ultimately to successfully breastfeed begin each cycle, and if you don't get pregnant, they go away each cycle. Those cells disappear. And then a woman, and this is very estrogen dependent. And so a woman going into menopause who's losing her estrogen, she very often, not always, gets diminished breast fullness. Absolutely. In older women, it continues to worsen. Now, there's another moving part there, and that is the amount of body fat. Sometimes women who are gaining weight, they're going to gain adipose tissue in their breast, fatty tissue in their breast. So it's not as clear cut in some women. And yes, overstimulation of estrogen will lead to increased breast density, and overstimulation by estrogen in a young woman, in a woman in her 40s is very common, because very often they lose the balance of progesterone, and very often they're cranking that estrogen to get it to recruit for the stress response as well. So you get increased breast density, you get breast tenderness, you get PMS, estrogen overstimulates the uterus, you can get endometriosis. And that's a whole other story, just from this excessive stress-induced excessive estrogen.
Yes.
Lacking the progesterone to balance it.
Right.
Now, some women actually restore breast fullness when hormones are replenished.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. In fact, it's one of the signs that a woman is moving into sufficient dose. It should never be the final answer. The final answer about optimal estrogen levels should always reside not in a woman's symptom alleviation story. It's great to alleviate symptoms, but should always reside in being in the optimal zone on 24-hour urine hormone testing. You need that to tell if a woman's got too little or too much. You don't want to have a woman, breast fullness is one thing, that's great, but you don't want to have a situation where a woman is producing by mitosis additional breast glandular cells as she did when she was young. So if this is the range of estrogen in a young woman, I mean, some young women have much less, some young women have much more, but that's the range in young women. It turns out what's excellent for menopausal women is right below that, so that we do not produce monthly mitosis. We do not produce cell division. We do not add breast glandular cells. And you can get some real decent breast fullness restoration simply by treating a menopausal range. And so that's one of the marks and measures that things are working. But, it's not a guarantee for all women. So
Right.
like anything, there's many moving parts. But definitely, if breast fullness is an issue and you would like to have restoration of decent fullness, then getting that estrogen dose right in the zone, not too much, but right in the zone, in many women will restore proper breast tone.
So that's where my famous prescription writing comes in, of hang in there, because, write it out every day, sing, hang in there. It's important to hang in there and have faith that, we can get this right. So important, honestly. I have someone saying here, that, like, why are they still writing on this information? Why do I feel badly? All this kind of thing. And we don't have to feel badly. Honest to God, we don't. So I want to move on, please, Dr. Rosensweet. Can we visit the, I think you pronounce it pregnenolone, correct?
Yes.
Pregnenolone, it seems to be the magic hormone. So why is it that we should not just take it and do away with the other ones?
Well, pregnenolone, how hormone production works, in fact, how so many molecules are produced in our body, and I am going to sneeze.
Bless you.
Me.
Bless you. That shook my computer.
How biochemistry works in the human body is you start with an initial substrate molecule, it's called, and that's moves through biochemical steps to keep on changing until it becomes what we want. So, for example, in order to produce estrogen, you start out with cholesterol. Oh my God. Why don't we just take cholesterol if we want to increase our hormones? You need cholesterol to produce estradiol, testosterone, all the hormones that you can name that really matter to you that come out of the ovary, testosterone, progesterone, DHEA, and estrogens. They all begin in a cholesterol molecule that's put through biochemical steps. It's so you want to believe in the divine, study biochemistry. You'll see it happen. Well, cholesterol is converted from cholesterol to pregnenolone. It's like the great grandma molecule. And pregnenolone is converted to the next steps. And those are converted to estradiol, testosterone, etc. Well, I find it absolutely not reliable to give a woman pregnenolone and hope that you're going to get the right amount of estrogen, the 3 estrogens. You're going to get the right amount. You're going to get the right amount of testosterone. You're going to get the right amount of DHEA, and you're going to get the right amount of progesterone. I was unwilling to do that experiment because it varies so much person to person. And I eventually concluded, unless you're doing 24-hour urine hormone tests, you never know. You take
Right.
pregnenolone and you never know. Did you get the right balance between progesterone? Because you're doing something from the outside. And there's no guarantee when you take pregnenolone and you're doing something from the outside that you're going to produce the proper amount and balance of the end hormones called the three estrogens, testosterone, DHEA, and progesterone. And so in order to test that one, if you're going to do it through pregnenolone, you want to do a lot of 24-hour urine hormone testing to make sure you wind up with something that is similar to what nature did for you. You don't want to be inventing a new hormone
Right.
balance because there's no guarantee that you're going to send it down the right pathways.
Right.
Now, so I would never give pregnenolone alone for that reason, but
Okay.
I always prescribe and recommend that you get the 4 hormones precise, and you can do it by administering the actual hormones. Now, in fact, I have often joked, well, if you want to do pregnenolone, why don't you just do cholesterol? Just
Yeah, take a big tablespoon of that.
that's eat some butter, eat a tablespoon of butter every hour, and see how much or however much it would take to get enough cholesterol to where, well, that's absurd, but it's the same principle in a way. Now, having said that, pregnenolone has value all on its own.
Yes.
Because, for example, they fed pregnenolone during World War II to airplane pilots and factory workers. And they did a study, and these folks all reported, or a significant number of them recorded, an increased number of alertness, increased amount of alertness and mental clarity.
Which they needed.
So,
yeah.
I tell you, when someone has cognitive issues, I not only restore the hormones in a menopausal woman, and I get them really exact, and I'll even be willing to push some of those hormone levels if necessary, i.e. push the estrogen levels, because a lot of cognitive issues in menopausal women, even the severe ones, even the ones that look like dementia, can be ameliorated by adequate estrogen dosages. That's where I start. I start with the big 4. And I'll very freely add pregnenolone to that regimen, as well as several other nutritional supplements, for the reason of seeing how much restoration of cognitive function can we actually get. Now, the loss of cognitive function can be as simple as restoring estrogen levels, as simple as that. Sometimes you got to go robust, much richer than we ordinarily would do. Will not hesitate to do that. And sometimes it's at the other end of the spectrum, loss of cognition and dementia becomes so technical, and you want to go to an expert to deal with cognition. And the book I would recommend, just to get yourself a jump start on it, is called The End of Alzheimer's. I've got it right here on my desk, and it's by Dale Bredesen, Bredesen, MD. This is the state of the art. And it'll give you a roadmap of all the things that can be done. And because sometimes injury to the brain has many moving parts, and we want to address all of them. Dr. Bredesen has identified 36, I believe, of factors to be considered. And this is in the realm of a functional medicine medical doctor, or osteopathic doctor, or naturopathic doctor, who's really gone way out of their way to study and specialize in the restoration of the brain. I know I'm going a little far afield here, but the question,
no, it's okay, though. It's important.
The question was really around pregnenolone.
Well, it was, but I mean, it just seems like the magic end all be all. Just take that and you're going to be all better. And I can understand that thinking, but it needs to be explained that there's a cascade.
And just on a practical level, if you're taking pregnenolone, all the more power to you, but you want to be a student of menopause. And the worst thing I could imagine is you'd be one of those women, 25% of women who do not have identifiable symptoms, but are still over time going to really experience the scourge of these low hormones. And You're going to get them right. And if you're going to try and rely on pregnenolone to do that, at least do a 24-hour urine hormone test when you're well ensconced in your pregnenolone dose, and make sure you're getting adequate, optimal estrogen, testosterone, DHA, and progesterone on that 24-hour urine.
Right.
Because that's what's going to serve you for the long run. And the long run in treating menopause is one of the most crucial parts of it, because it'll keep you up. It'll keep most women out of assisted living facilities. It'll keep most women out of adult diapers. It'll keep you walking and talking with libido, the ability to have sexual relations.
At 79?
At 79 or at 89, we don't know what the limits are here. And I know a patient who was having intercourse at 80 in her late 80s.
That's amazing.
So you get these hormones right, and don't rely on pregnenolone unless you really are doing some fancy 24-hour urine hormone testing. When you're on your optimal pregnenolone dose, and you make sure you're getting the right amount of estrogen and testosterone, DHA.
Got it. And you know, I'll throw this in really quickly, but you and I have often discussed that we like our hormones. We like them, you know, and we need them, and they go away, and it doesn't feel really great. So I am on board with you 100%. Become an expert at helping to treat yourself, and see an expert to help treat you, because you will feel a lot better. And
well, I wouldn't rely on you becoming an expert in treating. I mean, it's like
well, not yourself. No.
Yeah, no, but you can be an active participant, and better yet, you find someone who is an expert, and you can enjoy the ride, and you can be part of the team that, in knowing a certain amount can help you. But nobody gets good at anything unless they do 10,000 hours.
Yes, well, that is true.
You can get deluded into thinking you know enough, and yeah. So
well, I kind of meant like read.
This is a world that the best thing you could do is be an excellent shopper.
Yes.
Go out there and find yourself an expert that you trust, and read our book, and you can know some of the criteria that will help you discover whether the provider that you have found really has the level of expertise that's going to matter to you in the long run. We're talking 10, 20, 30, 40 years of treatment here. You want to get this one right. Or become a Menopause Method member. This is what we do, and this is all of our people that are in our program. All of the providers, they're specializing in this, and they're getting mentored by me, and so case by case. So
being on the receiving end of some of your teachings, it's really pretty incredible. You're a very, very, very good teacher. And that's oftentimes hard to find, sadly. I remember my father would say, you know, he'd call me Lily, and he'd say, you'll be lucky if you find 5 really good teachers in your lifetime. Well, I've managed to get 7 that I know, and you're in there, right in there. So I thank you for that. And these are really good answers to like really crazy questions that are, you know, we can really go down the rabbit hole, but we don't have that much time. So I want to ask you quickly, and then get to some of these questions. Can we discuss the difference? This is something I want to know too, between being menopausal and postmenopausal. Is there a difference?
Good question. There's no such thing as postmenopausal. I don't know. I know why that rose, because some women go into menopause, they have symptoms, and the symptoms go away. Other women go into menopause and they have symptoms, and the symptoms don't go away ever. And other women, they go into menopause and they have no symptoms to begin with.
Yeah, right.
But that is not what matters. It matters, and I'll get to that. What matters is when you're 20, your hormone levels are robust and they're doing their great thing, and then they start declining, and then that decline is consequential, and then finally the ovaries turn off and there's a big drop, but the decline never stops. And even that decline that takes place in menopause, whether you're having symptoms or not, that decline continues into your 90s. At which point, and I've tested women in their late 80s, those hormone levels are 0. And the consequences of having low, let's just start with testosterone, is you lose your muscle, You wind up going into from canes to walkers to wheelchairs. That's assisted living for most people. Or, and I don't know, it looks like we're frozen here. Can you see?
No, I can see you.
Okay, great. Or when you lose your muscle, you lose the muscle that holds up the bladder and the uterus, and we couple that with the atrophy of the vagina from low estrogen, and a woman winds up in adult diapers, called depends. She gets incontinent. And those are the two things that there's a third one. There's the loss of cognition that happens to many women. And that's what puts women in assisted living facilities, takes them out of the home. That is a critical moment in your life. And if there's any, for all of you who are tuned in, please hear this one. This is what matters most. It's the short term, yes, but it's the long term. Because when you're in your 80s and you're in your late 80s and you're in your 90s, if you still are cognizant, thinking clearly, your life is going to matter as much to you as it does now. It never changes for people. And the best thing you can do, the best reason for taking all these hormones, is that you can live long and prosper. You get to sit down on that floor with your great-grandchildren if you want. Or you can get to contribute to society, or have a happy life, and an active life. You're still walking and talking and thinking and having fun.
Yes.
The older and wiser you get, may it happen to you.
Yes.
And so in order to do that for most women, like 95% of the women, 98% of the women, you're going to need hormones to do that. And not only that, you're going to need the right amount. You're going to need to have it done with great accuracy. So if there's a reason for you tuning in, may I inspire you to get this right and do it for the rest of your life. Just like for men. Men lose their testosterone, and they need that testosterone, and they go on that testosterone by the millions. And if they don't go on that testosterone, a lot of men lose so much. Oh my God, what men lose.
The belly, the hump. Yes, and that could be a whole other interview.
Testosterone.
I have that.
You have well, this is the male version.
I don't have the male version.
Yeah.
I have my own version. And
so
I like it.
You never stop. So God knows what that question was.
The question had to do
if you're a postmenopause, and the answer is it's all a myth. Forget about it. It doesn't matter when if you wait so long as to when you stop menstruating, okay, that's a decent time to begin. But your hormones never stop declining, and you always need them. And you don't need youthful levels, but you do need adequate.
So that, I see right here from Jennifer and also from Sarah. Welcome to both of you. Thank you, Rod, for saying God bless you. We appreciate you too so much. Please speak to estrone. Do we have to worry about high estrone, the bad estrogen? I'm not so sure.
I would never. Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yeah. When taking estrogen, how to keep estradiol high and estrone low? That I'm not going to answer that, but you.
I will.
You can.
I would never call estrone the bad estrogen. That is, I don't know where in the world that thing comes. You test women, and there's 3 major hormones of the estrogen family that are active. And estrone is absolutely 1,000,000% essential to the whole, as is everything. It's like there isn't a bad hormone. And, when you go into menopause, all of them are going to get low. And it turns out if the replenishment is proper, you're going to have twice as much or more estrone as you will estradiol. The interesting thing is you do not have to be treated with estrone. The original treatment suggestion was, since a woman's ovary produces estradiol and estrone and estriol, do something called triest. Have all 3 of them in there. Well, it's not needed. You only need to have bias, and you do need to have bias. And you can read it about in the book why I would say something like that. And you're going to wind up, if you do the right amount that replicates the balance of a young woman's estrogen, you're going to have over twice as much estrone as you will estradiol. And that's normal. That's natural. And you're not.
Right. I think that's why it's called the bad estrogen, because women are frightened of it.
Well, that's incorrect. Women should not be frightened of it at all. They should embrace and love it like they love estradiol and estriol.
That's
Now, the thing is, the usual errors that I see being made with estrogen is that women are being treated only with estradiol. Big mistake. That does not copy nature and doesn't give you the cancer protection that estriol confers. In fact, we recommend a starting bias of 80% estriol, 20% estradiol. And the error that can be made is too much estrogen or too little. And so if you're not doing 24-hour urine hormone testing, it's very unlikely that you are actually ever going to know whether you have too much or too little. And we've designed with our laboratory, relating to the medical literature, what constitutes too much and what constitutes too little on final testing. And just because you've alleviated symptoms, 75% of you who say, I must be in the right dose, I've alleviated all my symptoms of estrogen insufficiency, 75% of you are going to be wrong. Only 25% of you are going to be in the optimal zone. 25% of you are going to have too much and putting yourself at risk for breast glandular cell replication and mitosis. And 50% of you are not going to be on enough to protect your vagina and your bones. And if you're not protecting your vagina and your bones, you do not have enough to protect your arteries and your brain. And, you know, Carolyn, I want to issue this.
hard stop.
We got a hard stop. I have to stop at 3 minutes before the hour because
You're just getting too famous and too popular. And we just want you right here. And it's so appreciated, Dr. Rosensweet. It's fabulous to get this information. And I apologize to the women. You know, we get the question. I'll try and answer them to the best of our ability. Like I said, that you know, this hour goes by so quickly. Question, where do you get the 24-hour urine test? Well, certainly, you know, please see iwonderdoctor.com, the menopause method, you know, be up here on this page, and I'll explain all of that happily where you can do that. Dr. Rosensweet, thank you. I mean, we got some good information out for sure.
Yeah, another scintillating fun day.
Scintillating. Oh my God. That is
David and Carolyn on our Facebook Live, and all these people. I recognize names here.
Yes.
Nice to see you.
Yes. Yes.
We're doing it twice a week right now, and I sure want to get to these other questions sometime, but I won't be able to do it today.
Let's just put them up.
Let's do one more, Carolyn, then I'll sign off. I'll have to drop out at 3 minutes to the hour.
Okay, so if you can explain, I don't know, do you have a question that you see there that you want to answer, or you want me to ask one?
You ask one.
Well, back to vaginal atrophy and help with the why it occurs and the how to help it, please.
Estrogen is one of the prime movers of vaginal health. And without estrogen, the vagina gets old. And you think your skin gets old, the vagina does something more significant. It actually atrophies. So instead of having the healthy, thick vaginal mucosa that lubricates well of a young woman, which is totally dependent on estrogen, there's other factors, of course, but estrogen's the main mover there. And as you lose that estrogen, that vaginal atrophy is 100%. All women get it. And you start noticing it if you're having intercourse and you start getting uncomfortable, and when you're having intercourse, you can be sure your vagina is undergoing atrophy. And the remedy is get that estrogen level to the optimal zone. That vagina will heal and will repair.
So it might take a little bit of time, but it can heal and repair. And this, is it only via cream, vaginally?
No, I mean, we love the organic oils, and just topical administration of the skin will eventually restore a vagina. You can jumpstart it by actual vaginal application as well. And sometimes it takes, depending on how severe the atrophy it is, if it's mild, sometimes it'll restore in about 3 months or 3 weeks, even if it's really mild. But I always think in terms of when there's significant vaginal atrophy, give yourself a year. Get those estrogen levels up to the optimal zone, and it will heal. And not only that, it's very significant. You can pretty much tell that you've got enough for your bones if you heal that vagina, and you must heal that vagina to have enough to protect those bones. It will be doing a lot of good for arteries and brain and skin and everything else and hair if you have just enough to help that vagina. But there's some women that they even need more. So that's a technical issue. And oh my God, our time is up and I need to sign off.
We must bid you an adieu today. So I have this new question. I've got them all. We'll have them up. Try and answer them. Dr. Rosensweet, God bless. Have a really amazing day. I'll see you on Thursday.
Yes,
And,
you will.
yes, I will. And we all will. And just enjoy. Thank you for doing this and all the great information you've given to all of us.
Thank you, Carolyn, for giving this out to so many women that you inspired to join Ins and Outs of Menopause.
I had no idea it would end up here when I started this little page back in 2015. Something's going on much bigger than me. And I got really lucky. Really lucky.
Until Thursday, I'm going to sign off.
Hasta. See ya.